You have an old games athlete grandpa. If you have a goal, you have to try to find what's your why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing, whatever it is? If it's, trying to get a different job or being the best dad or being the best mom or whatever that is, why are you doing it? Because it's really easy to just sit on the couch and not do anything and drink a couple beers every night. The hardest thing is just starting. It's really hard to be like, I'm going to go start something new that I don't know what to do. It's a lot easier if you're trying to do something and there's other people around you supporting you. I think that's what makes CrossFit different. CrossFit community is so supportive. I've been on the ground, people cheering me on, trying to, finish a workout where they're already done. And like that encouragement is, you can't put words to it. That's what's really cool about the community.
If there was one thing the world was asking for, it was for one more podcast about CrossFit. Well, here we are anyways. This is the Silverback Media Podcast, where we share the stories of the everyday CrossFitter, so that more people are encouraged and empowered to try it themselves. Here's your host and everyday CrossFitter, Marco Mejia.
What is happening, Silverback Media crew? Welcome back to the Silverback Media Podcast, the podcast for you, the everyday CrossFitter, where we're on a mission to make the world a better place by getting more people involved in CrossFit. My guest on the show this week is Lon Allen. Lon is a level 2 CrossFit coach at CrossFit North Scottsdale as well, but he is also the first games athlete that I've had on the show, which is an absolute honor to have him on and talk about his experience. Lon has qualified for the games 3 times. He's competed twice, as you're going to hear in his story. But what you're also going to hear is how he got into CrossFit in his 40s, all the physical background and everything that he had before that and what led him to CrossFit, and then the early influences and the big motivators for him that continued to push to actually strive for competing at the games. Through his story, you're going to hear the perspectives that Lon has gained over the course of his competitive career in CrossFit and how that helps benefit him outside of the gym, and things that you can take away, whether you're in your CrossFit journey, whether you're a competitor or not, that you can take away into your training, but also to apply into your day-to-day life outside of the gym as well. And before we get to this conversation with Lon, make sure that you're subscribed or followed to the Silverback Media Podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you're following on Instagram at Silverback Media so you get to see all the silly stuff that we have going on there. And now, with that being said, that is 32 down, 10,000 to go. And let's go talk to Lon. All right, Lon Allen, thank you, sir, for joining the show. Welcome to the show. Happy to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is kind of cool. I was thinking about this, looking at all the people I've had a chance to talk to so far. I think you're the first in a couple different categories, which is really cool.
The oldest?
I don't know about the oldest, but I think you are the first grandparent that I've had on. And I know for sure that you're the first games athlete that I've had on, which is kind of a cool combination, to say the least.
You have an old games athlete grandpa.
That sounds like a t-shirt right there. That's the title of the episode. I think.
Exactly.
I think we just nailed it. No, but this is going to be really cool to, hear your story. And, spoiler alert, right? You made it to the game. So obviously I'll be very interested to hear that experience and how we got to that point. Right.
Sure.
But I always like to start, kind of back at the beginning, right? What were you, a young Lon, physical activity wise? Were you playing sports? Were you active? Were you, what were you up to as a kid?
Yeah, as growing up, I grew up in a small town, so there was sports. There wasn't a lot of options in my town, but just the normal stuff. I played football, baseball, in high school. Kind of throughout my entire growing up, I was always active in some sort. So, but yeah, when I got up into high school, so I went to Lordsburg High School, which is a tiny little town. So yeah, football and baseball.
Nice. What position did you play in baseball?
I played third base and shortstop.
Okay, sweet. All right. I grew up playing baseball too, so I was like, all right, we can go into that. Did you play it all after high school?
No, I went straight into the Navy after high school. So, besides, Navy softball leagues and then getting out and then, beer league softball, other than that, no, my baseball and football career kind of ended at high school.
Gotcha. I hope you weren't playing third base in beer league softball, because that is a tough position to play because you're getting some rockets cranked at you. You're basically playing like short left field. Well, first, thank you for your service. I didn't realize you were in the Navy. How long were you in the Navy?
4 years. I was on submarines.
Oh, gotcha. What was that experience like?
It was pretty cool. I kind of equate it to like, if you're not claustrophobic for one, because it's very tight spaces, but it's kind of like being in an office building with no windows. I mean, really, once you're underneath, like you don't really know that you're underneath. I mean, it's very steady. You don't like, there's not a lot of rocking around or anything like that. It's just, you're kind of, like I said, you kind of feel like you're just in an office building with no windows, basically. So,
Makes sense. You make that sound way more calm and comfortable than I would have imagined. You're just like, oh, you're just in an office building with no windows. I'm like, okay, fair. That also sounds like now I'm picturing, because having worked in an office, like in a true office building, I'm like, man, if that had no windows, that'd be a very different environment, not being able to see outside. But I guess
yeah,
on a
I mean,
submarine.
when I first got to my submarine, the funny story about it is I first got there and it was in dry dock in Bremerton, Washington, getting overhaul. So when it got done with that, we headed out to Hawaii to our station. And when we were heading out of Puget Sound, that was my first time actually being on the submarine in water. And when we were getting ready to go under, they were handing out flashlights to, the crew. And I asked my chief, I'm like, well, what are the flashlights for? And he was like, we need to look for leaks. And I'm like, leaks? Like, there's not supposed to be leaks on a submarine. So, but
Like
just
I
coming
thought we
out of
checked
dry
for that
dock,
before we go under. Like let's
like it's
not wait
supposed to be
until
in
after.
place.
That's it.
So that was kind of funny and scary, first time going underwater and stuff like that. But once you did it, it was pretty cool. I had a fun experience, and
Like that sounds like the kind of thing that they would tell the new guy as a prank. It's like, hey,
yeah,
go take this flashlight, go check for leaks. And you're like, wait, what? That's not supposed to happen, right?
yeah, I could tell you a lot of funny stories. That could be another episode.
Oh, that'll be all right. That'll be round two. That'll be round two. So I'm curious. So you grew up, or I guess through high school, you were playing football, you were playing baseball. There's workouts and things associated with that, right? Obviously, as a part of the team sport dynamic and things. Um, Through that time, was that when you kind of started to really like take a liking towards fitness? Did you kind of see it as a necessary evil as a part of being a part of the team, or like how did you approach that during that time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm 57, so we're talking way back, in high school, it was just the normal running sprints and doing drills like that for
Mm,
football. And then in the Navy, boot camp was, back then, I went to boot camp in 87. So that was still just normal PT stuff, a lot of long
mm,
runs, push-ups and stuff like that. And it was just something, it wasn't anything that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be exercising. It was just boot camp. You wanted to just get through it. And then, after boot camp, it was just kind of normal life. It wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of exercise. There wasn't a regimen. So it was kind of like, if you were with a couple guys, you might go to the gym and do some lifting, bro
mm.
sesh, bench and stuff like that, but nothing structured. There wasn't anything back then like, I would say there is now.
Yeah.
Um, so there was no real structure of fitness in my life during the military career that I had. And
Gotcha.
then I got out of the military, and that's kind of when I picked up my softball career of drinking beer and playing softball, which I wouldn't recommend to most people because it doesn't turn out very good. So, but again, still no structure whatsoever. And then I don't know when it was, God, 25 years ago or something like that. I kind of got into triathlons.
Oh,
So,
nice. Okay.
yeah, I was, my wife, Steffi, and I, we were doing like, little fun runs and turkey trots and stuff like that. And one day at one of the turkey trots, there was a little triathlon flyer on our window,
Mm.
and it sounded interesting, and picked that up. And it was actually a course given at Glendale Community College that you could actually take to learn how to do triathlons.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And
Okay.
that's when I kind of got into like a structured fitness program. There was a triathlon group that I joined, and we would
Mm.
train and stuff like that together. And that was like really the first, I guess you could say, like community fitness group that I was a part of.
That's
And I
cool.
did I did triathlons for, I don't know, ten years or so. I did some short distance half Ironmans, and then I did 5 full Ironmans.
Oh, wow.
yeah, and then kind of just got burned out of Ironmans and triathlons and stuff like that. And then that's kind of when I got into CrossFit, was right at the end of my triathlon career, I guess you could say.
Right, 5 Ironmans. Okay, so I have some Iron Man questions, but before that,
Sure.
I want to kind of circle back to something. So, you mentioned not recommending the beer league softball fitness routine, right?
Well, yeah, I was
Uh,
just saying, one reason is because I was doing a lot more beer than I was softball. So that's the part I would, not that there's anything wrong with softball, because I love playing softball, but
Oh, for sure, for sure. Was there anything in that time frame between, while you were doing that until you guys came across that flyer for the triathlon class, anything in there where you kind of noticed or felt like, oh man, like I'm kind of slacking on the health side of things, or was there anything like that in that time, or was it just one of those?
uh, yes and no.
Okay.
No, because it was just, it was just you, you had kids and you were living your life and you were playing softball and you were drinking beer, and that just kind of went on. And the group that obviously I was with, everyone was doing the same thing. So it wasn't like anything normal or anything out of the norm to do that kind of stuff. And then I got a divorce from my previous wife, and I was sitting around one day, and that's kind of when it hit me of I've got to do something different, because I wasn't
Mm,
really exercising at that point a lot. And that's when I kind of was like, okay, well, I need to do something. What's the easiest thing to do? And that was just, I'm going to start jogging.
mm,
And literally, that's kind of when I started my fitness after, is just starting getting up and jogging around the block, and then jogging 2 times around the block. And then that's kind of like when I met my wife now. Then she was a runner. So then we started running and doing the little 5Ks and stuff. And then that's kind of how that all started. So I would say the turning
gotcha.
point was, sometime after my divorce, just sitting there thinking, okay, I just can't keep doing this, for the rest of my life. I need to do something. And that's kind of where it started.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, because I'm sure um, it's probably, it sounds like a turning point from a health and fitness perspective, right? That kind of set you on this path that you've been on now. So how much of a help was that when you met your new wife, or I guess current wife, right? The fact
Mhm.
that she was already running, it sounded like you had already kind of started building that habit too. It sounds like a kind of like a Forrest Gump type of story, right? It's like
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm just gonna start running.
I mean, no matter where you are, the hardest part, I would say, of anything, whether it's fitness, whether it's a I mean, anything in life, the hardest thing is just starting. Like,
Mhm.
because that's the scariest part of it. It's like it's really easy to just sit on the couch and not do anything, and drink a couple beers every night and watch
Yeah.
TV, and like that's super easy. It's really hard to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go start something new that I don't know what to do, or just
Yeah.
starting. So it's that first getting out of the door. And like I said, literally, like the first time I did it, I ran around the block, and it was just running around the block one time. And that was
Yeah.
the first day. And then the next day, you just do it again. And then,
Yeah.
you just try to build a habit. And whether it's good habits or bad habits, you hope to, it's very easy to fall into a routine, whether it's good or bad. So if you're going to pick one, try to pick something that's good for you. But yeah, so it does make it, I think that's, community, talking about the triathlon or CrossFit or whatever that is, it's a lot easier if you're trying to do something and there's other people around you supporting you. I mean, that's, how it is with CrossFit. I mean, I think that's what makes CrossFit different, even in the triathlon community, because, everyone's there and you work out together and stuff like that. But I mean, not that I've been a part of, CrossFit community is like, it's so supportive. Like it doesn't matter. It honestly does, because I'm no better than anybody else in the gym. Like, oh yeah, I went to the games, but that means nothing. Like I'm just a regular person working out in the gym, and I've been on the ground, people cheering me on, trying to finish a workout where they're already done, and like that's just that encouragement is like you can't put words to it. I mean, it's that motivation that when you're done, and if it's super hard, then you're like, I'll be back tomorrow because these people are here. It's like that's what's really cool about the community.
For sure. And that was one of the big things. And I know you've gone through this too, right? From the level one. That was one of the big takeaways for me when they when they start to explain that difference or that concept that CrossFit is, differs by degree, not kind, right? To where like, hey, regardless of skill level, right? You can have a whole bunch of different people and everybody will modify and scale to whatever it is. That way everybody kind of gets that same feeling, that same stimulus. And whoever the level one instructor was for me explained it as like, if you, Tia, Claire Toomey, and like somebody's grandma are all in class together, and here's the workout, like we can modify whatever each person's standards. That way everybody can work out at the same time, basically be doing their version of the same thing together. And then you still get that community factor of like, we're all throwing down together. We're all supporting each other because we're all working towards the same thing. And it like, I struggle to think of many things that have that same level of camaraderie built into it that are such a positive thing to work towards too, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and with that, not even just the scalability, but just the like my mom is she's 77, and she doesn't do CrossFit, but she works out. And anytime she comes down to visit and we work out in the garage, she'll do the same, I'll have her do the same workout that I'm doing, and we'll just modify it so that she can do the same workout. So, and I think that's the other part, that not only can you modify the movements to have the same stimulus for people, it's not like you're like, oh, well, I have to be a CrossFitter for 6 months before I can do the same stuff. Like you can walk in off the street and never have done a CrossFit class and get the CrossFit class and get the same stimulus as everybody else.
for sure. So my mom actually came to visit. This was probably 6 months ago. She came to visit, and she had, just because I do CrossFit and my dad does CrossFit, so she'd always been interested, but had never actually gone. And I finally convinced her to come with me to the gym. And Jen was coaching, and I think it was like a 1 rep max clean day, like the perfect day to take my mom, who has never
Yeah,
been to a CrossFit class, right?
right.
It was like 1 rep max clean and like some AMRAP of some stuff, right? I texted Jen like 10 minutes before on our way, like, hey, my mom's coming. She's never done CrossFit. By the time we got there in that 10-minute window, she had basically written a whole different workout that was like just modifications of the movements we were already going to be doing. And by the time we left, my mom was like, that was awesome. Like, I didn't realize that, it gave her that perspective of like, oh, I could do this, right?
Right.
She's not going to, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different reason.
Right.
But that gave her that exposure to like, oh, this was really cool. Like, we were in class, there's Neil in there cleaning 330, right? And then there's other people in there who are like, cleaning like 95, and then she's
Yeah.
doing basically like hang cleans, and everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. And it's the coolest thing there that could be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pick up a 15-pound dumbbell and get the same workout as Neil doing the 330. I mean, that's what's great about it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so I want to go back to your Ironmans because I do
Sure.
want to hear some of that. So you said you did 5 Ironmans and a bunch of other different distance triathlons, right?
Yeah, I did 5 full Ironmans.
Full Ironmans. How like are you doing? Is that like one a year maybe? Like how spaced out are
That
those from each other?
was spaced out probably over, I would say the five, probably spaced out over a 7-year period or something like
7.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So
That is
I did
yeah.
Arizona. I did Arizona twice. I did Coeur d'Alene, Idaho twice, and then I did St. George, Utah once. So
Nice.
those were my 5.
Well, those sound like great places to do it too. Hopefully, Arizona was in January or December,
Yeah,
not
it was,
July.
yeah, no. I think it was in November is when the
November.
Arizona
Okay.
one was.
When you were getting ready to do your first one, or at least decide to start training for your first one, what was that? What was that thought process like? Like I got to imagine there had to be a little nerve wracking, right? Of like, I think I'm going to try to
Absolutely.
do this thing.
Yeah, absolutely nerve-wracking. I mean, you're talking, for people who aren't like super great in each one of the or a discipline in it, like if you're just a normal person like me, doing it one, you have a 2.4 mile swim, which that's a long way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh, and then 112-mile biking and then a marathon after that. So it was very nerve-wracking for me. It was always like, the swim is, I never really worried about the swim because, you go nice and slow. I was lucky enough that on mine you got to wear a wetsuit, so that helped
Mm.
obviously with the buoyancy. And then if you needed to, you could always like flip over on your back and just float to catch your breath if you needed to. So the swim was never really like it wasn't, I wasn't really worried about it. The thing about the swims when I was doing Ironmans, which is completely different than they do now. So now it's like if you're in a marathon, like they go in waves,
Mm.
so like,
Okay.
15 or 20 people ago, and then 15 or 20 people ago. So when I did it, 2,000 people were in Tempe Town Lake floating on a line. And then this giant cannon would go off, and then 2,000 people would start the swim at the exact same time. That was the
Yeah.
scariest part of every Ironman that I did was the swim start because it was mass destruction. Like
Oh my
getting
goodness.
kicked, getting hit, your goggles getting ripped off. Like that was the scariest part of any of my Ironmans was just that first initial start of the swim.
Well, I
So
believe it because that's like you hear that with whether it's long swims in whatever type of discipline, right? You've got that many people in open water, and
yeah,
there's, I guess you probably hear it a lot in like water polo, where it's like
yeah.
people are actually actively trying to pull you
Oh,
under. Obviously,
yeah.
that's not happening there, but
But it
you've got
happens.
feet and arms and leg.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure maybe the really competitive people might be doing,
Well, I
doing
mean, like
some.
and it's just like not even that they're doing it on purpose, right? Because there's so many people together that,
Mm.
if you take a swim stroke and you catch somebody's shoulder and you come down, that you're taking that person down. Like you're not
Yeah.
meaning to, but yeah. So for me, that was the scariest part. So yeah,
Goodness gracious. And then there's then there's you get done with a 2.4 mile swim, which on like any one of those three components of it on their own is an outrageous achievement, right? So then you get through the
yeah.
swim, you get through the bike, and now it's like, oh sweet, cool. Glad I'm warmed up for this marathon. I gotta run now.
I mean, unless people like are really good swimmers, but like the funniest part when you talk to people and they'd be like, yeah, here's the distances. Most of the time, people would be like, oh, the swim, that would be easy. And I'm like, because the distance is like, it's a two compared to 112. But I'm like, have you ever seen what 2.6 miles straight across like water is? That's a long way. So,
Like
but
you're barely seeing it across
yeah.
to the other side.
Uh, but I would say that, besides just, being nervous, on the swim, somebody told me something on my first one and it kind of stuck with me through everything, even into my CrossFit journey that I started and stuff is that, especially if it's your first of anything, right? Like if it's your first 5K, if it's your first, whatever it is, Spartan, whatever it is that you're doing, if it's your very first one, like I always say, don't worry about anything except trying to have a good time. Like
Mm.
because you might not ever do another one. And if you don't ever do another one, you want that to be a positive experience. And if you go into it thinking that and just try to take everything in. So my first one, like it was enjoyable, like as much as it can be. I mean, it was, horribly long and I was in pain, but like for the most part, like I tried to suck everything in. Like, on the bike, I would look for people, spectators that were out cheering me on. I would like physically try to like, okay, they're coming up. I got to look at them. I got to wave at them and smile and
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean, you just, so I always tell people like, if it's your first of anything, just really like have a good time because you never know if you're going to do another one.
It's
So
a
that's,
really That's it. That's kind of a cool, like, it's almost like just trying to, like an active way to be present through that experience, right? Instead of like,
yeah.
oh, I want to do it in this amount of time. And now you're so laser focused on that, you miss everything else going on around you, right?
Yeah.
And
And
then
I
you
like,
miss
and
that time, then you just have this frustration around it when it's like, dude, you just finished an Ironman.
yeah, I mean, and you can't, I mean, you tell yourself that. And like, I've even, like, I try to tell myself that when I go into competitions and stuff, but like, I even fall into the trap of like, so focused and, then you ruin the whole experience. Like
Mm.
I did Wadapalooza Miami as an individual, I don't know, 5 years ago or whatever. And I wanted to do good. And, I went in, I kind of had a back injury, but I was feeling pretty good. And first event went really great. And then the second one was this long row, and it blew my back up. And I was pretty much kind of done from that point. And I just had the worst attitude. Like I'll admit it. Like I had the worst attitude. I was bitchy, complainy, like not something that I usually do. But I wanted to do so good, and then I knew I wasn't going to do good. So like every event was like just horrible for me, and I was a jerk, you know. And I didn't enjoy it. And it was my first time in Miami and everything. And I think it was the second to the last event, and it was we were on the pier or on the Bay Bridge or whatever, and we had to do a swim. And of course, like I've done Ironman, so anytime there's a swim, like I'm not a good swimmer, but I'm a good CrossFit swimmer. So
Yeah.
in the
That
CrossFit
makes sense.
world, I'm a pretty good swimmer. So I always enjoy the swims, you know, and went in bad attitude, same thing, and then jumped into the water and I was swimming. And I just remember like coming up to breathe on one side and I could see the Miami
Mm.
skyscraper. And I was like, oh my God, like you're swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, like you're in Miami. And it just completely changed at that point. Then I was like, okay, like just enjoy yourself. So like the last two events, like that was a great event for me. I don't even know what I came in, but I was just happy, you know, like the attitude shifted. And then I had fun the rest of the time, which was sad because it was only two more events after that. But yeah, it's like you get caught up sometimes and then you just kind of, you just try to enjoy everything because life's too short.
Such a cool perspective, and I feel I'm gonna borrow that. I'll make sure to credit you. But I feel like when you're kind of talking through people of like even just something along the lines of going into do to a CrossFit class for their first time, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's obviously something you could do a little bit more regular than an Ironman or a CrossFit
Yeah.
competition or something like that. But the same thing I think could still apply, right? If you're coming into a class, you know, remove the expectations of like what you think you're going to be able to do. Just try to have a good time. Like
Yeah.
look around, soak in the environment, talk to a couple people, meet some new faces, get some names, and just try to enjoy the experience, right?
Yeah.
That I feel like that could set someone up in such a different way for like staying in it for longer than they might have thought, right?
Absolutely.
If they just
Yeah.
kind of go into it with that perspective, which is really cool. Yeah. And I can picture that like that Miami. So I grew up in Miami.
Okay.
So no, I know exactly that skyline, like the
Yeah.
Bayside area
Yeah.
that's right there. And it's a beautiful skyline. I can't imagine
Oh,
what that looks like, in an open water swim that you just come up and you're like, oh man, like
it
look at
just,
this. What the hell?
yeah, it like hit me. Like it was just, I was like, I'm swimming in the Atlantic Ocean. Like this is amazing. Like this is so cool. And then from that point on, my whole attitude changed. So
Yes, like that's awesome. That's great. Okay, so you did okay. So you go through your Ironmans, right? So you got five Ironmans over the course of like that 7 year stretch. Actually, one more Ironman question.
yeah.
What was that like when you crossed the finish line your first time?
Oh, it's incredible. Like, and again, like I always hate like back when I did it, but again, like it was a long time ago. And there's so many things that have changed again in the Ironman world, in the CrossFit world, because again, like I've been around for a while. So, what was really, really cool, and actually have a picture of it, is when I crossed the line on my first Ironman, my two boys were with me and they got to come out and cross the line with me. So I have a picture of them crossing the line. And obviously, something happened, somebody got hurt or something. So then they stopped doing that. So you can't, Stanley can't come out and cross the line anymore. So I would say that, finishing it was amazing. And then just, having my two little boys next to me going across the line. And that was, yeah, it was pretty special. So that was, it's a feeling you can't really describe. It was pretty amazing.
How old were they at the
Oh
time?
gosh, they were like 9 and 6 at the time, or they were, little tiny guys, So yeah, they were waiting at the finish line, and my wife was there, and she's like, "Here he comes," and walked him out there, and then we crossed the line together. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's so I'm like getting chills thinking about it. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but like it's thinking about moment. I've got kids. They're a couple years younger than that, so, but I can like picture that,
Oh
and you
yeah.
do those things that like they look at you and they're like, they're like, man, look at my guy. Look at how cool he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like I said, I have a picture. So like whenever my boys are, grown up and gone, but anytime they come over and visit and they see that, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And so it's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Oh man, that's so cool. Okay. Let me try to shake
So
off
yeah,
these
so I
chills I
uh
just got.
I finished my last Ironman that was in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
And then I was burned out. Like I had been, it a full Ironman is just it takes so much to train for those. And so I was burned out. And I was working in Scottsdale at the time, and I'd actually been to a triathlon class, and the guy sitting next to me had mentioned this CrossFit, this thing that started up this CrossFit thing. And I was like, what's that? And he was kind of talking to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, stop talking to me. So I I remembered that in the back because then when I finished my Ironman and when I was working in Scottsdale, I was working through the police department at the time, and they were handing out these little flyers for try a free CrossFit class at CrossFit Tempest is what it was called way back when. North Scottsdale was CrossFit Tempest, and it was right by my office. So I was like, oh, this exercise thing. I remember this guy talking about it in the class. I'll go try it out, see what it's like. So I
What
went
year?
out there.
What year was this
Oh
about?
gosh. Oof. I don't even remember. Way 15 years ago or so.
Okay, so like
Way, way back.
early
Way back.
2010s, maybe late 2000s
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
age. Okay, okay.
So I went in, talked to Shane and the other co-owner, Jason Fine at the time, talked to them, and they kind of explained it to me, structure, class times, and stuff like that. And then Shane said, well, why don't you come back tomorrow and actually try a class and then see if you like it or not? And I was like, okay. So I came back the following day for my workout, and there was like I think there was four of us in the class, small little four people, nobody else. It was just us. And again, like I just come off an Ironman, right? So like
Yeah.
I'm so fit, like I'm the fittest guy in the world, right? I did an Ironman. So Shane was talking about the workout and stuff, and I'll never forget. We're all standing there, and he's like, we're gonna do a 7 minute workout. And in my
Oh no.
head, I'm thinking,
Oh,
this is stupid. Like this is the dumbest thing in the world. Like 7 minutes, we're gonna do a workout for 7 minutes. Like I'm like in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do your 7 minute workout, and then I'm gonna leave and I'm never coming back. Like this is stupid. And then he's like, so we're gonna do 7 burpees, and then we're gonna do 7 dumbbell thrusters. And it was with 20-pound dumbbells, right?
oh,
20
yeah.
pound dumbbells, 7 thrusters, 7 burpees for 7 minutes. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, this isn't going to be hard. Whatever. 7 minutes. Like I just did an Ironman for whatever, 14 hours working out. Like this is dumb. And yeah, 3, 2, 1, go. And I'm going to say maybe 3 minutes into it. Maybe. It could have been 2.5, but I'm going to give myself 3 minutes. 3 minutes in, I thought I was dead. Like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I couldn't lift my arms. Like I was just completely dead. So got through the 7 minutes, got home. Next morning, couldn't lift my arms. Like I was T-Rex. Like I was like, I can't lift my arms. And I called Shane up and I'm like, okay, how do I join? And I signed
right.
up and it's
You're like,
that was
I just finished an Ironman. How the hell did you kick my ass this
it,
hard in
it
7 minutes?
yeah,
What the hell's
it was very,
what kind of
very,
voodoo
very
magic is
humbling.
this?
Yeah. So
Yeah, that is. And I'm
yeah.
sure now, thinking back on your experience, if you had seen anytime you see a workout that's a 7 minute workout,
Oh,
now
it's
looking at it,
cool.
you're like, oh no,
Yeah,
this is gonna hurt.
yeah, absolutely. So that was my introductory workout into CrossFit. So yeah, it was
Nice. Okay.
um yeah, I signed up, and like I said, the rest is history. I've kind of been there
Yeah.
ever since.
Did it did they talk because I'm sure you were probably thinking about it like I just did an Ironman. How in the world is this, these relatively short workouts compared to the long training sessions you've had? What were those conversations like maybe when you first started CrossFit with Shane, with Jason about like hey, why is this different? Like, how am I getting smashed by this 7 minute workout? And I just did, a 14-hour Ironman.
Hey, quick interruption from me. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you are, I have a favor to ask of you. The main way that this thing can continue to spread is through word of mouth. So if you're enjoying this episode, send it to someone or share it with someone that may benefit from it or enjoy it as well. Leave a comment, drop a 5-star review, follow the show, share about it on social media. That's the main way that we can help get this message out to others so we can continue to spread this, okay? I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And now let's get back to the show.
Well, and obviously intensity, which they did. I mean, so back again when I started, the thing that was really I would say cool, special, whatever it is that
Mhm.
CrossFit was like, so new at the time. It was kind of they were, CrossFit boxes were just popping up,
Mhm.
So when I started CrossFit, everybody else that was in the class was starting CrossFit. So
Right.
everybody was like learning CrossFit at the same time. It wasn't
Mhm.
like, nowadays you go into a gym and, if it's your first class, probably everybody else has been doing CrossFit for a while and you're that new person. So you
Mhm.
kind of feel like out of place a little bit. Where when I started, like everybody was out of place because everybody had never done CrossFit before. So like standing in a circle and like learning kettlebell swings, everybody was learning what a kettlebell swing was, and so yeah, just and learning about like the different pathways and like the intensity levels and you know different nutrition, which obviously, CrossFit, that's, a huge part of it. It's one of the pillars, so it's like everybody was learning everything about CrossFit together back then, which was really cool. So,
That's a really interesting, yeah, because that's, I mean, very early days of CrossFit, right?
yeah,
And not to, I guess I just kind of was doing some of the quick math in my head, right? So you mentioned that now you're 57, and this was about 15 years ago. So you're starting CrossFit around 40-ish, right?
yeah, yeah, it was
And I
early 40s.
yeah, okay, and I feel like that's cool to hear because for one whatever reason or another, some people may think like, oh, CrossFit, the intensity, that's like a young person's game or something like that. Not that 40's old by any means, or 57, right? But at the same time,
But it
like you
is.
started it, yeah, like you started at 40 and have had 15 plus years of consistency in it. And obviously we'll talk through the rest of what
Yeah.
that's looked like. But I think that's really a really cool component of it to hear, is that, and you've had all the other fitness background ahead of that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I know masters athletes who are in their 60s now that started when they were 55, so
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah. Again, like we go back to like, I think that's what really cool about CrossFit is that like, you don't have to been 20 years old and be like, okay, now I got to start CrossFit now so that, I can do it when I'm 50 or 60 or
Mhm.
whatever it is, like you can start whenever, it's
Yeah.
that's what's great about it.
Have you ever had people, because I know I have you ever had people that say like, oh, I got to get into shape before I do CrossFit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I still need to
There's-
get in shape to do CrossFit. Yeah. Yes, all the time. They're like, well, I'll get in shape and then I'll come. I'm like, well, why don't you come and then get in shape? Like that's
Yeah.
it's
It's like, come get in shape the right way from the start, right? Learn the
yeah,
good habits, learn the good technique, do it first, and then you don't have to unlearn anything later, right?
right. Yeah. So yes, I have heard
Oh.
that many times.
Did you ever have and I don't know, maybe this is different because you, like you were saying, that you had, everybody in the group for the most part, right, at the gym when you started, it was all kind of learning together. Did you ever see someone like do a movement, maybe it was like a high skill gymnastics thing or a weightlifting movement, where you were like, I don't know what that person just did, but I want to figure that out?
I would say the people that were really doing you could say the high level movements, whether it was lifting or whether it was gymnastics, were really Shane and Jason, and Jason, so Shane was like he's a great athlete, but he wasn't really a competitor. And
Mm.
Jason was more on the competitive side. He wanted to compete. That's kind of he's the one that really got me into trying to make the games was Jason. So I would say that at the beginning just it was really those two that were, like the ones that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to be able to do that type of thing, like, going back to a funny story, like, in the first couple, first week or so that I had started, there was a group of us and the workout had like, pull-ups in it and stuff like that. And, so Shane's going over the workout and he's like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do pull-ups. And like, I'm like, I can't do those pull-ups. Like, and I'm like waiting for somebody to be like, well, what if you can't, but nobody's raising their hand. So then finally I'm like, I got a question, Shane. And then he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what if you can't do pull-ups? And then everyone was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, thanks for letting me ask. So, that's when he's like, oh, we got bands and stuff like that. And so, like, again, like, just we were all like, learning how to do pull-ups with bands and stuff. And then, so, then months or, years down the road, somebody gets their first muscle up or something like that, that was always cool to watch. So,
Oh
but yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah. Those kinds of movements, whether, PR and weightlifting, or I feel like the gymnastics movements are a little bit different. Because like most people are, at least when you're getting started, like if somebody wants to start exercising or something like that, like weightlifting type of stuff, meaning just like moving external loads, dumbbells, barbells, or whatever, that's a little bit easier to kind of come to terms with. I'm like, okay, that's probably something I need
yeah,
to be doing, right? Where the gymnastic stuff, I feel like that's way more foreign to people that aren't used to it. So I feel like unlocking those kind of new skills in gymnastics is a way bigger jump for people at whatever level, right?
right.
Even as something as as I don't want to devalue it, but it's something as simple as like doing a full air squat properly for the first time. If somebody
Yeah,
hasn't done it before, it's like, whoa, wait a
yeah,
second, like,
yeah.
So I don't know if that was something for you too. I mean, you mentioned the pull up story, right? That I'm sure there was some time down the road where you did a workout with pull ups, and you were like, hey, wait a second, I was the guy a few months ago or
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
it was that just had to ask,
Yeah.
what do we
How do
do
you
if we
do
can't do pull
that?
ups?
Yeah.
Yes,
So, yeah. And I mean, like you said, the gymnastics part of it, it's like those are, they're hard to learn, and they're easy to fail at, and it takes a long time to get better at them, unless you have a gymnastics background, which of
right.
course I never did. So, but yeah, like you said, it's like, just handstand push-ups were always like, super difficult for me, and just trying to work on those and going to a competition, and then having that in there, knowing that you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to kill me, and then like finally getting to the point where you're like efficient at something. You might not be super great at it, but you work really hard and you're efficient. And then like if you happen to be at a competition or in class or whatever it is, and then they come up again and you're like you're more excited than nervous. Like those
Yeah.
are those are breakthroughs that I think for people that are like that, it's a breaking point that they're like, oh my gosh, like, oh super, like they're in here now. Where before you're like, oh no, like I don't want to do them. So yeah, it's always, I think it's really cool to watch members, as a coach, like look forward to stuff that they used to didn't like. So because they
Great.
worked hard, and it's always good to like, have that hard work pay off, so
Oh, yeah.
whether it's, and for me, it was always just like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, I don't need that, like, oh my gosh, here's a pat on the back because you just did something that I don't need that. For me, it was personal. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, I work really hard at whatever it is. And I'm better at it now, so I'm excited when they come up, So
Yeah.
like,
How did that feeling, right, of like working hard at something, getting over the hump on it, right? I'm always curious how that feeling that you get from something inside the gym translates to outside, whether it's work, family, whatever the case is, right? Just having that perspective of like, oh man, this thing that I didn't know if I was going to be able to do, I worked hard at it for whatever extended
yeah,
period of time, and now I can freaking do it. And not only can I do it, but like I'm excited when they show up.
yeah.
How did that show up for you, like in life outside the gym?
Yeah, for me, I think it's both. Like for, obviously doing an Ironman was a pretty big accomplishment for me. But same thing, I think that kind of transferred over into the CrossFit world, like knowing that like if you want to be better at something, for most people, and you have to work really, really hard to get better at it. I mean, some people are just gifted, but for most of us, like we have to work really hard. So when it does pay off and you're like, you know what, I never could do a rope climb before, or whatever it is, double unders, a lot of people struggle with double unders and it takes work. And then if you finally get them inside accomplishment of like, I just got to put in the work and I know I can get it done. I think that transfers over into life every day. Like if like I said, starting something new is really scary. Like if you want to start a new job or you have an interview or you're going for a promotion or something like that, I think those are the hard work things where you can fall back on and be like, you know what, like I can do this. Like I know I put in the work and it's going to be okay. I think that's, it shows you that if you put in the work, you can get it done.
And yeah, no, I love that perspective. I feel that's something that like, you know, CrossFit, like the CrossFit workouts are hard, but it's like if you keep that narrow, like the evidence you build of like being able to do hard things just like narrowed to with inside the gym, like you're missing out on so much of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like say, there's so much that can just benefit you once you step out of the four walls of a gym or wherever you do your CrossFit workouts. If you do it in your garage or whatever the case
Yeah.
is, right? It's like you could take that with you through the rest of life and just be a force to be reckoned with if you're building that evidence across it, right?
Yeah, and that just goes, I mean, even to just everyday life, I think of it as, I think whether it's CrossFit, well, I mean, I think CrossFit is the best way to do it, but even if you're just, exercising regularly and staying healthy, like it just transfers over to being like, if something comes up, I can just do it. Like I don't have to be like, if somebody came up to me tomorrow and was like, hey, I'm doing a marathon next month, and I really want you to do it with me. I can do it. Like I might not be fast, but I'm not scared. Like I'll go out and I can do it. If someone's like, "Hey, we're hiking the Grand Canyon next week. Do you want to come?" And be like, "Okay, let's do it." Whereas most people would be like, "You know what? I can't. I'm gonna have to start training for it, and maybe next year." Like, I just whatever that is. Everyday life. If something comes up, like I'm perfectly fine to say, "Okay, let's do it."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know I think this must have been before recording. You're doing the High Rocks race this weekend,
I
right here
am.
in Phoenix. And it's like that's a
I
good
am.
example too, right? Of one of those where it's like somebody comes up to you and say, "Hey, you want to do a High Rocks 3 days from now?" It's like if you've been in CrossFit regularly, you're like, yeah, sure. Are you going to be like top of the leaderboard?
Oh,
Probably not,
yeah.
but you got to specialize and stuff if you want to be like at that level.
Yeah.
But like you said, you're ready for whatever comes up,
Yeah.
right? Like it is the best, I think, objectively, like general preparedness, strength and conditioning program, methodology overall. If somebody prefers to do something else and they can be consistent with it, totally cool. Have fun. Love that choice for you.
Absolutely.
But if we want to talk about just like objectively and measuring stuff, like yeah, I'm putting CrossFit at the top for sure.
Absolutely.
And I'm biased towards it,
Yeah.
but
Well, of course. Yeah. I mean, well, I just think it makes you more well-rounded, I guess you could say. And again, there's two sides to CrossFit too. There is the competitive side of CrossFit, and then there's just the regular general population side of CrossFit through affiliates and being a general member. And they're completely separate. And I think the lines get blurred sometimes, and
yeah.
I think it kind of gets a bad name because of the blurriness of them kind of crossing over, which they shouldn't because they are completely different. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know a friend who's up the street from me. She's a marathon runner. Like she's super fast. She can run like crazy. And then she signed up for the High Rocks. And then so, she's a runner. High Rocks is running, but there's other stuff that she had never done, and she's small and she doesn't lift. And then so she joined Mountainside and she tried it and she couldn't push a sled. And now she's not doing High Rocks. She backed out. So it's just, I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's like I said,
Yeah.
like, is she a better runner than me? Absolutely. And, but like, again, like I'm not a runner, like I'm
Yeah.
not, but I have no problem signing up for the High Rocks race, knowing that I'm going to finish it. I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to go and enjoy myself with my friend.
Oh, and that even goes back to that perspective you shared. Like, hey, your first time doing something is like
Yeah,
just enjoy the experience because like
yeah,
who knows if you'll do another one. So soak it
yeah.
all in while you're in there. And it's funny as you mentioned the marathon runner side. The first thing that came into my head was like, ooh, the sled pushes and the wall balls are going to be a rough
Oh,
experience.
absolutely.
So, and I think that's a cool segue into the competitive side of things for you, right? So
Yeah.
now you've been, you get into CrossFit, you have that first 7 minutes, 7 minutes in heaven experience, we'll
Yeah.
call it, right? That first workout. So now you're in it. At some point in there, when did you start to think about the competitive side of things and really pushing that side of things?
Yeah, so it's probably a couple of years before I even really like kind of knew like, oh, there's this thing called the Open and stuff like that, and kind of what it was all about. Again, because of Jason, he was so competitive. He was trying to make the games back then and not knowing what that was or whatever, and him having to like set up his little camera and videotape for the Open and stuff like that. And that's kind of where it like, I learned about it and kind of got interested in like, watching him do it. And then when he made the games, and back then it was, a lot different as far as the Open because the Open mattered like so much more back then if you were trying to make the games or anything to that matter because where you finished in the Open was your first score for the next round. So
Okay, okay,
yeah,
I didn't know
so
that.
back then, on the master side of it, like, I think I'm trying to remember if they took, let's just say, I think they took 150, let's just say, from the Open to the next step, which was your qualifier. And then from the qualifier, it was right to the games. And they would take 20 people to the game. So you had six scores back then. And if you finished 150th to move on, your first score is 150. So you were pretty much
Oh,
out by that time.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't make that up. So, the better you did in the Open, obviously was better to make it to the games because that first score meant so much. So, yeah, so the Open really meant a lot back then. You would do Open workouts two, three times to try to get the best possible score. But just watching Jason do that, and then him making the games was really cool. And then I think I think I was maybe 44 when I was like, oh, this might be something that I might want to try to do, whatever. And then uh Jason ended up getting cancer, and he ended up passing away, which was really hard on the gym and stuff like that. But I just remember right towards the end, he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, he's like, I just want to let you know, like, you have what it takes. Like, you can make it to the games." And I still remember him saying that, so like that was a huge driver for me, like, and then with him passing, having him, tell me that, that's kind of when it was like, okay, like I want to try to make a run for the games. Um, and then I think it was about 7 years later, maybe I finally made it. But that's for me, it was always like, I didn't hold it in either. Like, that I think that's the one thing. If you have a goal, a big goal, like if you I believe this, like if you might not ever make it, but if you have a big goal, tell as many people as you can,
Mm,
and just so that you're putting it out there, and one, you hold yourself accountable because it's pretty easy to have a goal and not tell anybody because then if you don't make it, like who really knows? Like it's all right,
right.
whatever. Like it's like, okay, well, did I really have it or did I not have it? So like when I decided like, okay, like I'm gonna make a run for the games, like I was like, okay, hey, I'm gonna make a run for the games. And then of
Mm,
course I didn't make it. And everyone was like, oh, sorry. Well, okay, well, I'm gonna try next year. And
yeah.
and it's hard. Like that's a hard pill to swallow, telling people you're going to do something and failing year after year after year.
Mm,
It's really, really hard. And, you have to find motivation to do that. And so for me, like I was at North Scottsdale and then I left and went to a different gym with the sole reason of I thought that gym had a better opportunity for me to make the games. And that's
okay.
the only really reason that I left North Scottsdale to go to a different gym was because I thought it could help me get to the games,
Sure.
and again, I got there and told everybody there, like, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to the games and, not making it year after year, it's hard, so
Yeah.
I think if you have a goal, you have to try to find the actual, tell yourself like, what's your why? Like, why are you doing what you're doing, whatever it is. If it's, trying to get a different job or being the best dad or being the best mom or whatever that is, why are you doing it?
Mm.
Because you're gonna fail. Like more than not, you're gonna fail, and it's okay to fail. It's not okay to quit. It's okay to fail. And um, I failed a lot. I've failed more than I've actually succeeded. But I had Jason in the back of my mind telling me like, you can do this. And I have a picture of Jason hanging in my garage. Because when I was training, the last couple of years before I actually qualified for the games, COVID, it was right before COVID and stuff like that. And I was pretty much training out of my garage 100% of the time. And Jason's picture is hanging in my garage still to this day. And every morning when I would go out to train, like I would look up and see him. That was a big why for me. He was my push. Having my mom see me on the competition floor with the best in the world. Like I wanted that before she's no longer here. Like I wanted her to see me on the floor with the best in the world. And then my third why was I wanted my son to be my coach at the games. Like those were my three whys. Like beyond belief. Like every time I was injured or nicked up or didn't feel like training or whatever, those were the three things that got me through the year that, I missed it by a spot and didn't get to go. That's pretty easy to be like, okay, I'm done because it takes a lot out of you, it like takes time away from your family, takes time not doing stuff, and the sacrifices that you make year after year, um, it's hard to keep going. But those were my three whys.
That is, I feel like I have like seven questions. There's this there's this like business guy. Do you know Alex Hormozy?
I've heard of
Have you
them.
heard of him? Heard of him? So
Mhm.
he talks about it. He talked about this in an interview. It was mostly in terms of like, entrepreneurship, building businesses. He's like, you can fail so many times, have failed businesses, and like everybody will say, like, why are you chasing this thing? Why are you trying to do this? And he's like, they're right until the time that they're not. And then it doesn't matter anymore. Right. And that's what kind of like that's what came to mind as you were talking about, like, basically, what'd you say? It was like a 7 year stretch
Oh yeah.
of like pushing, basically having the goal to when you first accomplished it. And it's like through those 6 years or 7 years leading up to that time that you officially like got the stamp, like I made it. It's like if there were people that were doubting you through that time, they were right
Oh,
until
absolutely.
until they weren't.
And and uh, I mean, thank goodness I've never been one of the guys that you say you don't care. For the most part, I don't care what people think. You know what I mean? Like in some instances, you always care about something that somebody says about you. It's just human nature. But for the
Yeah.
most part, like I don't care. Like if I'm doing something that I want to do, or if I have a goal, like, and if I'm failing year after year, and I tell you straight to your face, like I'm gonna make it to the games this year, like that's my goal, and I don't do it, and you're like, ha, you missed it again. Like, yep, okay, like I don't really care. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to keep going back to something that you keep failing at, and the the hardest part of that whole journey, I think, was the 2020 when I qualified for the games. Like
Mm.
when I qualified for the games in 2020, they took 10 people that year. They always took 20. And then in 2010, they dropped it down to 10 people. So only 10 qualified for the games. And I gave everything I had, and I got the email that congratulations, you made it to the CrossFit Games. And I mean that reading that email, like it was, it's like crossing the finish line at the Ironman. Like it's something I can't explain. And then 2 days later, I get the follow-up email that the games were canceled for the Masters because of
Oh,
COVID. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
talk about the
So
yin and yang, the
that
opposite ends
was
of the
uh
emotional
that was
spectrum.
that was one of the hardest pills to swallow. Yeah.
Oh man.
So and the funniest thing is like just like, I still remember like on, Facebook or Instagram or what it was, when they were people were complaining, obviously, that the games got canceled for the Masters. And then people were like, what are they complaining about? They can just qualify again next year. And I'm like, you
Like
don't
you have
have a clue.
no
Like, you don't
idea.
understand. But yeah, that was pretty hard. So they the following year, 2021, they bumped it back up to 20 people that they took to the games. And the coach that I was working with at the time, Bill Grunler, he we had a long
Oh,
conversation.
yeah. I
Yeah.
listened to the podcast he does,
Mhm.
the Get with the Program. I'm
Yeah.
avid
Yeah.
listener of those guys. So
Love Bill Grunler. Like, love him. I still text him to this day. Like, great guy. We had a long conversation, and he's like, I think we have a chance. Like, let's do it one more time. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay. So, I was lucky enough that in 2021, I was able to qualify again and actually go. And that was, it was in Madison. That's when everyone was together, and
Oh,
that was something pretty special.
was that? No, that wasn't the last year in
No,
Madison, was it? No,
no, it
no,
was
no. That
like
was
second last year.
okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to, I guess, the 2020 situation, and I want you to tell me what it felt like when you got that first email. Knowing that a couple days later you got the second email, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking like when you got that first email that you qualified, thinking about the whys that you mentioned, right?
Oh,
Like going back to Jason and those words that he said to you, and thinking like, oh, my mom's gonna get to see me compete, my son's gonna
yeah.
coach me, right? Like what was that just in that moment,
it
that
was
emotion like?
it was I mean, I think I was yelling, and I think, I think Steph came running into the kitchen, and she's like, what's the matter? And like, I was yelling. I'm like, I made it. I finally made it, and yeah, it was amazing. Like, I guess it's that monkey off your back, like the weight of the world off your shoulders type of thing for me, And again, it was like my weight, my shoulders and that's the other thing I think that, to kind of interrupt myself, but when people have goals, especially like if it's like, whatever goal you have, and if you have it and you keep failing, like I put the pressure on myself that like what people are going to think of me like as a competitor if I don't make it, right? Like, oh my gosh, he's no good or anything like that. But nobody thinks that. Like, like in the gym, whatever, like if you make it to the games or you don't make it to the games, nobody thinks any less of you if you don't make it. But you think that, like you put that pressure on yourself. And I think people need to like, stop that, and realize that like everyone's there just to support you, support you if you make it, support you if you don't, and whatever that is, So yeah, I think that was it was a huge weight off my shoulders, just knowing that like I finally did it. Like finally did it. Like it was incredible. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool to hear because like yeah, I mean, 7 years is
It's a long
that's
time.
that's a long time.
It's a
And
long
that's a
time.
long time to be putting in like the amount of work probably over the course of that stretch too, right? I mean, we can even think about like the kind of open division, right? That, people see as like the games athletes, right? The skill level and the amount of training that goes into making the games now compared to even 10 years ago,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
you were essentially going through that evolution from like
Yeah.
that first year
It
you
was
started into
horrible.
that seventh year. You were like, holy crap, how much more do I have to do?
Yeah, I still laugh about it. It's like, when back when I was, 45 or whatever, and looking at all the skills that we had to do that I wasn't very good at the time, which obviously kept me out of making the games, like ring muscle ups, like, and then, when I was 45, when you were 50, you didn't have to do that kind of stuff. So in my head, I'm like, I just can't wait till I'm 50 and then I don't have to do that. And then like I get to 50 and then they're doing them again, but then not the 55-year-olds. And then I'm like, I can't wait till I'm 55. And then like it seems like every year that I'm like, I can't wait to get there because I don't have to, they just keep moving the barrel over and over. I'm like, people who are 60 are doing them now. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like it's
You're like,
crazy.
I'm,
So
I'm
yeah,
never going to escape these.
the bar just keeps getting higher and higher and higher, So it's difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I always laugh at that. I'm like, I just wanted to get a little older to not have to do stuff, and I still always have to do stuff. So
And it's going to keep going too. So
yeah,
what was
absolutely.
the one we were talking about this year that they had at the Master? It was weighted pistols, I think they
Weighted
had, right?
pistols. Yeah, 60-year-olds we're doing pistols. I'm like, are you crazy? Yeah.
You're like, oh boy, better keep these knees healthy.
Yeah, that's, and I kind of on the competitive side, it's like that's kind of, where I kind of go back to like, programmers for competitions. It's like, you got to weigh the risk to reward. It's like you are talking about masters athletes, and yeah, they're, like they're they're phenomenal athletes that go to these competitions, whether it's local competitions or whether it's, the games or whatever that is. It's like, yeah, they're amazing athletes, but like, do you need to do certain things to try to prove their fitness? Because you can get the same stimulus with different movements and not put the athletes at risk. Like, and I think that's where it gets to where some competitions try to push it a little bit too far just to go, oh, well, they're good, so they should be able to do it. Where it's like you could do different movements and still get the same outcome without the risk of injury.
Makes
So,
sense. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it, especially as like the skill level of everybody across all the divisions and all the
right,
age groups continues to go, right? It's like, yeah, I'm sure there's kind of a weird balance there because, like, to an extent, you probably want to mix in some new things to test people in a
right,
different way, right? But I'm sure there's a balance there of like, hey, wait a second, like, is that necessary, or are we trying to get cute and fancy here, right?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they're out of a 20-person field, you weighted pistols. You might have three of those people that are like, oh, this is really great.
mm,
But is that really what you want to do? Like you got three people and then 17 of them, and then like half of those you might be risking their injury. Like it's not worth it, I think. So, but that's
makes sense.
just personal opinion.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so now I want to fast forward back to 2021. So now you've had, you have the man, emotional roller coaster, we'll call it, of that few day stretch of 2020, right? Finding
Yes.
out you make it and then finding out a couple days later that it got canceled because of COVID. So then it's like, all right, time to strap back up and do it again. So now
Yeah.
2021, you make a run at it, you qualify, and
I
now
did.
you're in Madison.
Yeah.
What was that like stepping out on the field, or I don't know where the first
Yeah.
workout was, right? In that venue, but what was it like when you were stepping out for the first time?
So I'll answer that and kind of give you a little story behind it too.
Yeah.
This is why I think when the games for the Masters shifted away and they're by themselves now,
Mm,
this is where I think the problem is that for most games athletes, it's about the experience of being a games athlete, right?
mm,
It's, oh my gosh, like all the work that I've put in and I finally made the show. Like I made it to the Super Bowl type of thing. It's the experience of being there.
mm,
For the top 3 to 5 people, they're going there because they want a podium, and that's their whole goal. They know they have a really good shot, and that's what they're there for. Everybody else, they know that they're probably not going to be on the podium, and
mm,
it's about being a games athlete and just the experience of being there.
mm,
So walking into Madison, like we walked into this to the venue and we were greeted by somebody and they're like, Lon Allen, like welcome, like go back here. And like so this person escorted me through this little walkway into this big like set up locker room. And there were
mm,
all these lockers and it had your name in it and this lit up little locker with your name and all your uniforms there. And they're like, okay, like, go in, try on your uniforms, see if they fit, make sure if they don't, I'll get you the right size, blah, 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 blah. Congratulations. After you try everything on, like put this one on, you're going to go out here, you're going to take your pictures, blah. And you're like, oh my, like, I'm somebody. Like it was amazing. Like it was truly like, so and then yeah, I mean, again, like we were lucky because like Noble was a sponsor way back then, and we just got like it was like they backed up a truck and they were like, all this stuff is yours, which is great. But even with that, taking that part out of it, like it's the experience that we got there. Like you were just treated like you were like a superstar. Like everything was just amazing. They'd walk you around everything. Everyone was just, it was great. And then that was the registration, getting checked in and everything like that. And, again, like Corey was there with me, my son. So he got to go back there and experience all that, which was great. And then, yeah, the first workout was it was like a run. So it was outside. It wasn't really anything, spectacular or anything. It was just, we were running around the stadium or something. So, but what was cool was like I said, we were all together as far as like the individuals and the masters and everybody was together. So the warm up area, like everybody shared the warm up area. So like you would
Whoa.
be bumping into like Rich Froning and his team, and you would bump into Pat Vellner and like Tia Toomey, and like they see him walking by, and like it was amazing. Like, because they're who we see on TV every day. Those are like the stars, and like you look up to those people and idolize them and stuff like that. And to like be there with them was, yeah, it was great. Like it was truly great. I remember like getting done with one of my workouts, and Corey was like, "Hey, get on the bike and cool down." And I was like, "Okay." So I got on the bike and I was just spinning, and all of a sudden some dude hits me on the shoulder, and like I turn and it was Pat Vellner. Like he was on the bike next to me, and he's like, "Hey, did you just work out?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Pat Vellner's talking to me." Like, I'm like, "It's talk, long talk." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "What'd you do? How'd it go?" Like, like he's just having a conversation, because he's, like it's stuff like that like the people now who make it to the games will never experience that part of it. And that's
Mm.
what I mean by an experience. It's like you don't need all the gear that's given to you and stuff like that. It's you want to feel like all the hard work that you put in, all the blood, all the sweat, all the tears, all the years that it took some people to make it there, that when you get there, you're like, "Oh my God, like I am a games athlete now. Like this is amazing." Like, and to have
Yeah.
that there. And I don't think they have that now. Like, because I went back in 2024 when it
Mm.
was separate, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it's still the games, it's the Masters games and stuff like that, but it feels more like just a normal Masters competition. Like that you just because it's another Masters competition. It just happens to be the games.
Makes sense. Yeah,
the
it doesn't have the
experience
whole
the experience isn't
everything
there.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I
The,
hope, I
the,
mean, I hope it goes back to that for the people who do want to, go to the games and stuff like that, because it's truly it's an amazing experience if you get the right one.
yeah. Well, and the one of the coolest part, I feel like there's like again like six different things that you said in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to come back to that. But just even that moment you mentioned of like finishing a workout, right? Your son's like, hey, go cool down, go spin on the bike, and next thing you know, you're sitting there chatting with Vellner about what that was 2021. He was, I mean, he's probably podium finisher
Oh yeah, he
one of
was.
those years, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, he's big name.
yeah, and what that remind like that's an experience that you have in an affiliate, right? How many times you finish up a workout and the next class comes in, they're already getting started, and you're sitting in the corner with with a couple people from the class you just finished. You're like, man, that workout was rough, right?
Yeah,
And it's like it's that same kind of just camaraderie of like, oh, what'd you do? How'd it go? How did you do this? And you just happen to be doing it in Madison at the CrossFit Games, sitting next to Pat Vellner, one of the biggest names in the sport.
yeah, and I
You know,
think it's that thing that brings CrossFit. It's what makes CrossFit so amazing is it's a community, right?
Mm.
And at the CrossFit Games, when you were there, like you felt that community because you felt like I'm one of these guys. Like everything that I did to get here, like I'm one of these guys, And I think that's that experience. That's that feeling of like being at the games is
yeah,
when you get that when you're all together.
man. Okay, I want to go back now as you're, kind of going through that games experience. There's kind of two different ways I want to go with it. So we'll see if I can remember to ask both of them. As you were getting ready for that first run, right? Thinking back to I think you said the piece of advice that somebody gave you before that first Ironman, right? Of like just soak in the experience, try to have a good time. How much was that resonating in your head as you were getting ready for that
Yeah,
for that first workout?
100%. I mean, especially because I'm not a runner. So I
You're like, I better
knew
have a good time because this
because
is not
I
gonna go well.
knew I wasn't gonna like have this great time or be competitive in that first workout. So I was like, okay, like you just, take it all in, and there was different groups or different age groups were kind of running at the same time. So like I saw people that I knew that were like younger than me, like running by that I knew that we, yelling at them, talking to them as we running by each other. Yeah, seeing people out in the crowd, yelling at them, waving at them. Like, yeah, I try to have a good time on the run, it's like, and yeah, that's kind of what I did.
And then the other angle. So now, thinking back to like the kind of the whys that you mentioned that kind of kept you moving forward, kept you pushing to achieve this goal. You make it, you're there. You have your son with you as your coach. I'm assuming was your mom
Yeah.
able to go there to see you on the
Yeah.
floor? And
Yeah.
then in your mind, you've probably got Jason's words in your head, right? That he told you before he passed. What did that mean to you? Like to be able to, I don't know if you were able to like see your mom from the field. I don't know if you're like waving him on, hi mom.
Yeah. I mean, there's on some of the workouts you could see him, and if anybody knows my mom, like she's has a very loud voice, so I could always like I could hear her even. But I think one of the coolest things, I guess, for me, the my favorite moment, I guess, at the games, they actually had a one rep max snatch, and I knew I would be pretty close to the top in that one. There was two other guys that I knew like had a chance, like we were going to probably 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, depending on what you did. And where the coaches had to sit were like straight across from you. So like I'm lifting and I could see Corey, right ahead of me. And we hit a couple good lifts, and like every time I'd look at him, he would just give me the keep going, like keep going. And I was like, okay. And then I think I threw on 237. I had 237 on, which I'd never, 225 was the highest I'd ever lifted before. So I look at him and there was, I think there was like 30 seconds left or something like that. And I was just like, and he's like, and I was like, okay. And I hit it. And like just holding that weight up above and watching him jump up and down, cheering me on, like that was not winning it was great, but seeing his reaction was my win. Like that was the win. Like for me, like that was my proudest moment right there.
Feels like a nice like an awesome parallel to like that picture of crossing the finish line at the Ironman,
Yeah.
right? Of like of being able to do that with him and then having him right in front of you as you hit this big
Yeah.
lift on the floor and you're like,
Yeah. It was pretty
oh,
that was pretty cool.
oh man, that's amazing. That's so freaking cool. Okay. Wow. This is such an incredible story. I mean, just all across the board, right? From like the Ironman training into CrossFit, pushing for the games, the lengths you had to go to actually get on the floor, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like I'm sure there's a lot of challenge in there in the details of those even 7 years leading up to the first time you qualified that we really didn't even get to touch on.
Right.
But it's so cool hearing that experience once you were able to finally set foot on the floor. So thank you for sharing all of it. And
Of
I've
course.
got one more question for you as we kind of wrap up here. I want you to think back on like, over the course of your story through fitness, through the Ironman training, all of that, all those things, finding CrossFit and everything like that, right? Um, if at any point, right, early on in that journey before you had heard of CrossFit or before you tried it, right? Maybe it was like when you first picked up running, you were kind of had that turning point moment a little bit, or somewhere in that, as you're going through Ironman training, if you get a couple minutes to sit back with a younger version of yourself and think like, hey, and that younger version of you comes across CrossFit and is like, I don't know about this stuff. They only work out for like 7 minutes. It doesn't seem that crazy, and I'm running Ironmans, right? If you could have a couple minutes with that younger version of you to talk about, now with all the experience you've had and experience you've gained through being in CrossFit for, 15 plus years, if you could give a younger version of yourself a couple minutes of advice on why he should try CrossFit too, what would you say to a younger Lon?
I would say two things. One, I would say CrossFit, like we talked about, I think makes you a more well-rounded person overall. Like I said, if you get into a specific sport, you can be healthy and it's fine, absolutely. But again, with doing CrossFit, I don't think there's anything that somebody could come up to me tomorrow and say, let's do this next week. And I would be like, okay, let's do it. Whereas if you're not doing CrossFit, you can still do those things. It just might take you longer to train to do them.
Hmm.
So I think it just makes you a more well-rounded person. And then on the flip side of that, looking at what I've done over the last 15 years and what I've had to put my body through the last 15 years, I would tell him that you might want to take some breaks in between the competitive side of training and just stick to the regular working out once a day, having a good time, throwing down in a class, and maybe do that for a year and then go back in and try to make the games again instead of trying to make the games every single year the way I was doing it. Not that it's bad. I just, I did put a lot of wear and tear on my body. Like it's like telling somebody, well, if you're playing football and you're making it to the Super Bowl and year after year you're getting pounded and pounded, at some point your body's going to be like, hey, you need to slow down. So I would say that would my only regret, I guess, and it's not even really a regret. It's just, looking back, I probably should have taken some more time to recover and not put so many miles on my body.
Makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a good stretch of time to really be pushing at that level. Yeah. So I mean, that's yeah. It's what it's like the Chiefs, right? Just thinking back to that football analogy. I mean, we've seen it this year. For hopefully for people following the NFL, they know what we're talking about, right? They make the Super
Yep.
Bowl 3 years in a row. Now all of a sudden, it seems like this year everybody was dropping. They were dropping like flies, and it's like, well, you
Yeah.
can only
You
have
can only
so many more tackles and hits to the head and hits to the body before the body's just like, hey, if you're not going to take a break, we're going to take it for you.
Yes, and mine has. So, but again, like for me, I wouldn't have changed it. It's still I I I love CrossFit. I believe in CrossFit. I'll probably keep doing CrossFit until the day I die, hopefully. And but yeah, just I should have been smarter and just me being stubborn and like that's just one of my faults is that I get something in my head and it's hard for me to let it go.
That's fair. It's probably a good quality to have in CrossFit, ironically enough, right? No, that's a great perspective, and thank you again for sharing all of your story, right? All the backstory and everything like that too. What's next? What's next for you? I mean, I know you're back in the fold coaching at North Carolina. We didn't even get a chance to talk about coaching stuff. Goodness gracious, I might have to bring you back for round two.
We can
Navy
come back
stories and
around
coaching.
too. Yeah, we can come back
Well,
around too. Yeah. So next for me, I'll try to make it quick. Is I'm kind of taking a break from last year and then this year of trying to make it back to the games again, for a couple reasons. Personally, and because of the where it is right now. Personally, because my wife and I were trying to do more travel, visit our kids and grandkids and stuff like that and just take more trips with us, because for so long we didn't do that kind of stuff. Our vacations were, hey, we're going to go to this competition, or hey, we're going to do this. So just trying to take more vacation time together, and I'm still hopefully doing some local competitions or something like that, but something where I don't, if I don't train for 1 or 2 days, I'm not gonna sweat it and not worry about it and just kind of like, just relax a little bit. And that's next. I hope CrossFit gets to a place where the games for the masters is back to being something that I want to go to again, because I would like to go back if it gets to the point where I think it should be. For me personally, I don't want to sacrifice that much to go to an event where I can just do a local competition that I feel is just as good. So,
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, so that's, I mean, right now that's on my next year is just kind of, training. I got 3 grandkids, so I got to make sure that I stay healthy enough that I can still play with them when I'm 70 and 75 and 80. So
Yeah. And you're getting ready for it. That's the beauty of CrossFit, right? It'll keep you ready for chasing kids around or
absolutely.
lifting heavy weights or whatever life throws at you.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Lon, thank you again, seriously, for coming on and sharing your story. And I appreciate you. And we'll have you back for round 2 talking about coaching
We'll talk
and
about
submarine
coaching.
stories.
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Lon.
Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with a friend. To get notified of future episodes, please follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you can continue to hear these stories. For more behind-the-scenes content of everyday CrossFitters, follow on YouTube and Instagram at Silverback Media. Until next time, this has been the Silverback Media Podcast.